Değerli konuklarımız, çok uzaktan, yurt dışından bir misafirimiz var. Kendisi Microsoft Dünya Kamu Sektörü E-Devlet Uygulamaları Genel Müdürü Rodrigo Becerra Mizuno'yu kürsüye davet ediyorum.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Rodrigo Becerra, and I am here from Microsoft headquarters. I am delighted to have accepted this invitation to your conference. I would like to thank the the Informatics Association of Turkey, as well as your sponsors, and especially Professor Turan Mentes and my good friend Erdem Erkul, as well as Microsoft Turkey. Given your wonderful food and companionship here in Turkey that I have experienced, I understand why maybe some of you are still delighting on the food, but I will try to start my introduction slowly so that when your colleagues arrive, they can pick up on some of the most important points I would like to highlight today. Let me tell you a little bit about where I come from. I think at some point I was sitting where you are sitting now. I used to be the Chief of Staff of the Finance Minister of Mexico, and during that time we were in charge, the Finance Minister of Mexico is in charge of modernizing public administration, so IT policy falls within the Finance Ministry, and I was charged with that project. So when I arrived at the Finance Ministry, when you sent an email, you had to call and confirm that they received the email, and it was almost like sending a fax. So what was the purpose of the email? Obviously, 14 years later now, I think we have an extremely good infrastructure, and that was because we worked very closely with the World Bank to create the first IT RFP, and that has been used as a model for other countries to adopt. So at some point I was sitting where you are. One of the key things that I would like to leave you with today is the idea of change. And I think the whole world is changing, especially what we have seen in this region has been very big change. But there is a lot of change happening also in our world, in the world of government IT, of IT in general. And I would just like to share some of that today, some of our experiences worldwide, which is a lot of what I have to do in my job. So just want to give you some of my insight around that. So first, we see several trends worldwide. The first one, of course, is economic crisis. I know that there are several countries that have not experienced as severe an economic crisis as others, but it is a lingering issue worldwide. I think, especially at the local, regional level, governments are really struggling to keep the lights on. Tax collection has gone down, so we see a lot of governments struggling to make sure that they can pay their bills, keep their people employed, maintain their social services, while at the same time trying to provide more services through IT to their citizens. But they are also planning for longer-term strategies, which is a lot of what I've heard today here. I love to hear how you are so interested in creating the right infrastructure for your country with a lot of planning and longer-term tactics. And then, of course, environmental sustainability continues to be an issue. I mean, we see a lot of the natural disasters, maybe related or not, to the changing environment, and that is still a concern of governments. One of the biggest ones, especially given what we've seen in the Middle East, is citizen interaction. There is a growing sense of skepticism in citizens worldwide, and I think that a lot of the new technologies can help better engage and communicate the citizens and have their voice heard at all government levels. And consumerization of IT. What I saw this morning, a lot of examples around social media, Facebook, Twitter. I see a lot of you carrying different devices, including slates, tablets, mobile phones. So a lot of our government employees, politicians, are now bringing their consumer life to the workplace. And that has become increasingly harder for us in the IT industry to help them manage those devices. There are several countries where The government now just releases a stipend of money to their government employee and says, buy whichever PC you want and bring it to the workplace, and we will support it. So that has become very challenging for the growing IT industry in government. And then increased competition. Mostly there are a lot of new models that are being experimented. With the financial pressures that governments face, competition has become fierce in our industry. Maybe issues around data sovereignty in the cloud don't become as important as they were 3 years ago. Now, maybe a local regional government is willing to have their data in a data center outside their country just because they need to provide that service. So, with that, there are different models that are being experimented. And let me now bring it back to the priorities that we see some governments having. And basically, they revolve around 4. Modernizing the public administration or creating the infrastructure. Some governments are trying to catch up, while other ones are trying to create the next wave of infrastructure. Countries like the Nordic European countries, Singapore, Brazil, especially that is preparing for the World Cup as well as the Olympics, they want to leapfrog and have the latest technology, and that is being done by the government. Some governments are driving open government, especially to try to engage their citizens better and provide a new way of citizens to access government data, which is, in essence, their data. And third is improving citizen engagement and services. With this financial crisis and a lot of what we've seen with disaster response, citizens have a larger need to communicate and interact with their government. Imagine what the unemployment interaction means in Spain, where they have 20% unemployment, or in the US, which for the last 3 years has lagged almost 10% unemployment. So imagine what that cost becomes to the state if it's not managed correctly, as well as healthcare. And finally, realizing efficiencies. We hear the term the cloud. I think some of my colleagues this morning spoke about the importance of the cloud, but the cloud is defined in many ways. I will show you some examples of what we as Microsoft see as the cloud, but the bottom line is that this should be creating efficiencies, not adding to your cost of operation. I want to leave you with a quote from the World Economic Forum, from their new report around the future of government, and it is that governments have opportunities to strongly enhance transparency, collaboration, participation, efficiency, and problem-solving capacity, service delivery to citizens. Social media, which is where I would like to narrow my presentation, we think will allow citizens to have a voice as never before and to become producers as well as consumers of information. I had a very good conversation last night in which a lot of countries want to use other countries just to consume, but not to produce. And this is also applicable to information. So there is a lot of important data that could be leveraged worldwide, and I think this is part of one of the problems and the solutions. Let me start with this small anecdote about a red balloon. And maybe some of you have heard of this example. Has any one of you heard of the red balloon contest? Yes? So it's a small story about DARPA, which is sometimes credited with inventing the internet in the United States, had a challenge. They wanted to measure the impact of social media and whether it was a fad and whether it was as powerful as they said. So they created a contest where they put 10 balloons around the United States, huge balloons that you could see from highways, buildings, in different geographic points scattered across the United States, to see if social media, using social media, you could find them and how fast it would take and how accurate you could find it. So there were several teams, including DARPA, MIT, Stanford, with very smart engineers and technologists trying to win this prize. The prize was going to happen in one day. And basically, they had invested a lot of money creating social media models to try to find the balloons. And basically, that morning, there was this hacker in New Jersey called Glenn Rock. He was famous because he was the first person to hack the iPhone. And basically, the price was around $40,000. So he thought he could buy a new car with that. And he had about 50,000 followers on Twitter and decided to enter the competition that morning with no planning. So basically he created a page which is called Dude, It's a Balloon, and tweeted his followers to find that red balloon. And if you give me the information, I'll give you part of the prize, and I will also give you the key to hack the iPhone. So the results were quite impressive. And you are welcome to check this out. It's all over the internet. But he came in number 4 without doing any preparation. He just created a very simple website. And he found 8 of the 10 balloons in the 4th shortest amount of time. And he obviously won a big piece of the prize and became even more famous. So now he has 50,000 Twitter followers. So this is just a small example of where the other teams ended up, including DARPA, which finished 10, and they were a team of about 5 people, very well funded. But this is one individual using social media and just the power of social media. So you're welcome to check those references and see what happened. The other key thing that I would like to share with you is why social media is important and why it's different. And we are here in Turkey at the intersection of Europe and Asia. And here you can see the numbers. So basically we have, who would you trust if you heard something about a product? Who would you trust the most? Government, official, or regulator is almost at the end. Surprisingly, blogger is very low. But then who would you trust is someone like yourself. European Union and Asia. It's even higher in Latin America and a little bit less in North America. And then second to that comes the academic side. So these are numbers from Edelman, Trust Barometer of this year. And I think that is one of the key things that make social media so powerful. So let me start framing this for you since we're talking about e-government. I see social media as government 2.0, but we have evolved from e-government 1.0. And this is the evolution that the Worldwide E-Government Association has drawn. So we are basically moving from a model of very little flexibility, very little personalization, to a model where it's an interactive model, all the way to what we would call government 3.0, where everything is personalized, it's more real world than what we have now, and basically where services become intelligent. So it's basically going from government to you to government with you, which is what we are seeing as the trend. So I just wanted to frame this for you as well. So with that, I talked about social media, and now I would like to structure this because we see also this trend of social media as being the key part of government 2.0 and now transitioning to open government. And basically several governments around the world, including the Obama administration, frame government 2.0 and open gov into these 3 categories: transparency, collaboration, and participation. And we saw this also in the quote from the World Economic Forum. And I would like to give you examples of what Microsoft is doing in these 3 spaces. So the first one is with transparency. I don't know if you have seen this website, which is being used in 33 boroughs in the United Kingdom. It started at the borough of Lewisham, and now it has been adopted by 33 more. And it's called Love Clean Streets. And it's basically a very simple application done with Bing Maps, with Azure on the cloud, SharePoint and CRM, where citizens are able to very simply report environmental issues in their borough, whether it is a tree that is fallen, or whether there has been no garbage collection, or whether it is graffiti. And some of the savings have been for the municipality, but also for the citizens, where their cleanup time of the streets has improved by 87%. And also the reporting of graffiti has decreased by 30%. So imagine a beautiful city like Istanbul with its historical treasures. I don't know if it has a problem with graffiti, but even if it did, and that went down by 30%, that would be fantastic. So it is the citizens and the government working together. So basically, citizens are seeing their demands or their reports heard by the government because they get a ticket back every time they report something, so they are able to see the follow-through, almost like using a shipping company like FedEx or UPS. You can see the tracking of your package, you can see the tracking of your complaint. It also improves the quality of the debate. The municipality can see where the problems are, what are the biggest reports, what are the problems, and it can also reduce its workforce, because then they don't need inspectors to be looking around, because the citizen is doing that. And it basically also creates trust. As I said, there is a lot of skepticism from citizens in whether they are being heard or not, and I think this starts to create another cohesive layer between citizens and government. So and it's transparent. You can always see what has been reported here, and how many have been fixed and how many have been not, so no information is being hidden. The second one you might be familiar with, and there are some issues I will talk about this, because some of you might be informed that there was some cutbacks in the budget around the e-government budget from President Obama. But that is more of a political play rather than a lack of trust in the system. But basically, data.gov is a portal that allows government agencies to post their most valuable pieces of information. And then citizens can rate how useful this is. And it's provided in a raw and rich format. The other key thing is that, and this is why I showed this page, is that the government wants feedback from its citizens constantly, which was unheard of before. It was basically this monolithic institution where they would not hear back from citizens or didn't really care. And now they are basically asking the citizen, how can I improve? What should I change? And this is what they are asking for. So this is creating a platform for innovation. A lot of this data is being used to create apps that can be sold, maybe like a data marketplace, where you can monitor epidemics or crime rate increases. So it gives a very good visual of what's happening. And it also improves efficiency, because if you are finding information that is not useful for you, you will rate it the lowest, and then it will be put in the archives. But most importantly, and this is the key to this, this is not just to provide the open data and post it out there, it's also to create a platform, but it has to be sustainable. If there is no value for this, it definitely should not exist. There has to be some viability to the project, whether it is you charge $1 to make it work, or you leave it open, but it has to create some kind of value to make it sustainable. It's not just about opening the data, putting it out there and sustaining it at whatever cost. It is very cheap usually, but it has to be sustainable. And there is also this analyst from Gartner, Andrea Di Maio, who is very keen on this subject. And we've had several conversations on this, because there are now many portals around the world, even though the US has made their budget smaller with regard to this. All other countries around the world are investing heavily on projects such as this. The third one, and this is one of my favorites, is the 311 solution. This is just Miami, and this is a very simple solution that was done in two weeks on the cloud as well, with Microsoft Azure, SharePoint CRM, and Bing Maps as well. And basically, what you are able to see here is all non-critical reports. Nobody being murdered or nobody in an accident, mostly non-priority reports from citizens. And basically what you see here is the service request. You are able to do this by phone, on your mobile, by text, by internet, or just calling, and it tells you what is your request, and it starts to plot that in the map live. So you can always go to Miami 311. You are welcome to do this if you have your computer right now and check what's happening in Miami. And you will see all the requests that are happening in the city of Miami. So it basically gives a voice to the citizen. But what we thought would be the most important thing, which was that citizen engagement, was important. But after 1 year of using the solution, the mayor of the city of Miami has said that this has created the biggest cost savings for him. He used to, as you know, Miami is a big tourist city. They needed to keep the streets clean, safe, well painted, so upkept. And now the citizens are basically helping their community do this. So they've seen about 30% savings on the budget that they had to use for government employees that had to walk around and report all these things that were happening. Now the citizens are doing that. So basically the citizens become part of the government workforce in their spare time. So it has been a big success. I also would like to, all this sounds very positive and great, but there are also some pitfalls to avoid. Not everything is perfect. And there are also some very interesting cases here. This is one that is very interesting. This is a poll done by the presidency of a country in South America. And basically they were trying to create this law around internet policy. And the president's staff had done all the work that they had done before to get this law approved. The lobbying, the work with Congress, the connection meetings, all the mechanism that they needed to get a law approved, and they thought they had the vote. So they needed Congress to approve it. But something happened the day of the vote. They lost, and they couldn't explain why. They had all these mathematic models of polling data, and they could not explain why they lost the vote, even though they had worked for months to get this law approved. And this line is what shows where the vote was. And I don't think you can see very well, but basically there are 4 lines. There is a green line, a red line, and then each one of them has a solid or dotted line. So the green line and the red line that are very pronounced here and here are basically people that are is the polling data of people that are very heavily involved in 2.0, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the 2.0 technologies, and are very politically active. The lines that are dotted, this little green one here, and this red one here, which is smaller, is the normal people that they were used to polling before, and that they were using as their sample to get the gauge of whether they would win this vote or not. And basically what happened was that these lines overturned the vote much faster and harder than the other ones, because they have a much more pronounced delta. And they had forgotten, or had not accounted the importance of these advocate groups into their model. And that's, once they were able to account that for the sample in the voting, they were able to explain why they lost. It turns out that these groups bombarded their congressmen the day of the vote to overturn it. And now, from now on, they have included this type of crowd into their polling data. So it cost them a year's worth of work, and they are just now preparing to introduce a second bill to hopefully get it approved in Congress in the next legislative period. The other example I would like to show is from my country, so from Mexico. And if you know a little bit about Mexico, it's in certain aspects it's similar to Turkey. But we have a president that has been very popular. He has been fighting the drug cartels very hard, and his popularity has been very high. So he thought it's a good time for me to join Twitter and have my Facebook page and basically become a politician 2.0. So he opened a Twitter account, and it was not a verified account because his staff wanted him to try it out before they made it official. But it turns out that people thought it was him. And one day he got a tweet asking him, do you have health insurance in this part, or health coverage in this part of the country? The tweet happened at 3 in the morning. So the president replied, yes, we do, and you should use it, because if you tweet at 3 in the morning, you need psychological help. So, of course, it became a complete outroar in the press the next few days, and they spent about 5 days trying to spin this problem, right? And now the lesson here was that the personas of a lot of the leaders in the internet, including Chavez from Venezuela, who you know, special effects. Okay, so I will continue. including President Chavez of Venezuela, who has a very unique personality. They are as well managed online as they are in public. So they have translated the political experience of their public appearances into the 2.0 space on the internet. So it is not always positive. It could always be a double-edged sword. I'm sorry you can't see the slide. I think we will reboot. Okay. And then I talk about a politician 2.0, and there is a point here that I think is very important, especially for CIOs in the government. We have spoken about citizens 2.0, which are basically the citizens that overturned that voting in Congress in about a year ago. We've talked about a politician 2.0 or trying to be a politician 2.0, but we seldom talk about the civil servant or the government worker 2.0. I think one of the biggest cases why e-government fails is because the government employees are not bought into the idea of e-government. We always forget them. We fail to train them. We fail to sell them on the idea. An example is when I was at the finance ministry, we got all this new equipment from funded by the World Bank to improve the efficiency of the public administration. New computers with the latest technology, the latest software. And one day I walk out of my office and I see one of the people working for me using the address book in Word instead of using it in the right program. And I say, why are you using the agenda on Word and not on Outlook or some other scheduling system? And she said, oh, it's because I don't know how to use it. So we basically bought extremely expensive typewriters. They were still using the computer just as a typewriter. And then we realized we had failed because we had not accounted for the training that had to go for them to use these tools. So that was a very big lesson for me. And I think a lot of countries are learning from that. But I wanted to show you, unfortunately, I don't think we will get the video. I was going to show you a video, but I might need to skip it, of about a politician that I think is an example of what a politician 2.0 is. And you are welcome to look it up in the internet. Maybe we give 2 seconds and I can show you this, just to close out the presentation. But it's basically Major Cory Booker of the city of New Jersey. So if you know, New Jersey in the United States is a city that has not a very good reputation. The most important thing there is the Newark airport, but other than that, it has a reputation of being a dangerous city, not a very good place to live, and basically a lot of other structural problems. But this mayor has overturned the city in the past couple of years. He has done very different things, especially to engage with their citizens, and using a lot of 2.0 technologies. So I'll show you a small video of some of the things he does that are very low cost and, you know, get the people excited about what he's doing. And especially last winter, I'll give you the anecdote after the video, but let me just share this with you. Especially after your lunch. I think the audio is not working.
Last week, Kamu-BİB'13 took a swing at the city. He said, and I quote, the mayor of New Jersey wants to sell the citywide program to improve residents' health. That's good. The healthcare program will consist of a bus ticket out of New York. Come on. You fail to understand our city is one of the fastest growing cities in the Northeast. We have strong neighborhoods, strong people, reductions in violent crime. We have a city on the rise. Conan, I want you to hear directly from the people of Newark what they think of you and your joke.
Did you hear what Conan O'Brien said about the city of Newark?
No, what he say?
Who's Conan O'Brien?
You gotta need some help, kid. This Newark you talking about right here, chump. You don't mess with Newark like that.
Not only am I mayor of New Jersey's largest city, but I'm also mayor of a city with one of the largest airports in the United States. So now, according to the powers invested in me by the people of the city of Newark, I'm officially putting you on the Newark, New Jersey airport no-fly list. Try JFK, buddy.
So Major Cory Booker now has more followers than Conan O'Brien. And if you know Conan, he is like David Letterman, he's huge. I mean, he got 224,000 hits on this video, and it's a pretty old video. But he has become a leader in the open government Gov 2.0 world. And especially in Christmas, he set up a website where citizens could tweet directly to him or to his website to go help them dig themselves out of the snow. If you know, the Northeast, New Jersey, got one of the worst snowstorms periods of the United States in the past 50 years. And he was personally going there to help them get their cars out, get out of especially elderly people, out of their homes. And his popularity has skyrocketed. So he's not only using social media to gain popularity, but to improve his public policy agenda, which is, I think, the key of every politician. So with that, I would just like to leave you with 3 pitfalls to avoid. And I know these are a lot of in our minds, especially failure, but exclusivity is one of them. Connectivity in many countries. We've done several projects, especially in India lately, and we've discovered that connectivity is an issue. And this creates an exclusion, but mobile phones are starting to help a lot in this sense. To break some of those barriers, but still, we need to make sure that this does not become exclusive, that it does not create the barriers of entry to just a certain elite. The second thing is to not despair. I talked about change at the beginning, but change does not happen overnight. It takes a long time, and it takes, my third point, which is mistakes. We will all make mistakes. Unfortunately, I know for some of us, if we make mistakes, it might cost us our job, but it is always good to start small, maybe with some pilot programs, and see if it works, which is how a lot of the projects I showed today started. Miami 311, Love My Clean Streets, even the Eye on Earth that Jamal presented early. It started as a small pilot, and then it has become nationwide or local and regional government-wide. So please don't be afraid to fail. And finally, with that, I would just like to thank you again for having me here. I hope this has been positive for you and helpful, and thanks again. And if you have any questions, I also would be happy to take some. They gave me a translator, so. No questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
This is for you. This is a special Turkish.
Can I take it up? Here, I think over there.
Maybe you remember Turkey.
I will always. Oh,
This is special.
beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.